Welcome back. We are now hearing that the Coinbase CEO is confirming, quote, relentless buying spree in the crypto space as we are potentially at, well, we are at all-time record highs, but potentially at or near the top of the market as we've been talking about and discussing on these videos for the last few months now. And as I've been explaining, the end of the market, the top of the market, doesn't happen necessarily over the course of, well, I guess it does over the course of one day, but typically you see multiple tests of certain levels in the market. But we are also hearing about companies like Coinbase and all of these Bitcoin treasury companies who are literally buying the top of the market. Their dollar cost average is now at all-time record highs. And people believe that because of this, now we are going to be going to $200, $300, $400,000 and potentially even $1 million in this cycle, citing the M2 money supply, citing, experts in the field, citing Bitcoin bulls. Well, in today's video, we're going to be exploring all of that. And I'm going to show you that there are a lot of people missing signals in the market. And we're going to be starting right here with the screenshot rule. This is the Cryptoviser podcast. Don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. We upload every single day of the year. So make sure you guys are also subscribed to the channel. Thumbs up are free. Crypto is not. Let's get right into today's topic, which is you may be missing the signals. So essentially, this user on X said the screenshot rule. When you catch yourself screenshotting your gains and texting holy to friends or posting gains on X, this is not just excitement. It's a signal. It's called the screenshot rule. Took this person some hard lessons to learn it. Trim 5 to 10%, you'll thank yourself later. And remember what I've told my viewers on this channel for a while. When you start getting phone calls, texts from friends and family that you never hear from asking you about which cryptos to buy into or needing help to buy, the PP coin, these are signals, right? These are signals in the market. It may not be the top signal, but it may be a signal that we're towards the top. I think the issue that a lot of people, especially newbie investors, get into is they want to sell exactly at the top and buy exactly at the bottom. Well, nobody knows exactly where the top or the bottom are going to be until afterwards. And so this is where you have to kind of look at the signals in the market. And as I've been explaining, selling at $110,000 Bitcoin is not much different than selling at $120,000 Bitcoin. Yes, you could say it's a $10,000 difference, but when you're talking about a tenth of a Bitcoin or a hundredth of a Bitcoin, you're talking about hundreds or tens of dollars. It's not that big of a difference, especially when you're already in gains, which many people are, because most people are not buying the top of the market, except if you're the exit liquidity, right? And so understanding these signals, like the screenshot rule, right? When you want to tell your friend, your family, your spouse, your coworkers about how much money you're making in crypto, that is a signal. That's a signal that it's time to probably take some profits off the table. And then we have users like this, right? Brian Brookshire, who's a advocate for Bitcoin adoption, right? So obviously a Bitcoin maxi. He says TradFi, traditional finance, and even much of X is still asleep on the potential of MicroStrategy's S&P 500 eligibility. When the news cycle hits, it's going to hit hard. Now, by the time you're watching this video, maybe the news already did hit. But effectively, one of the criteria for a company to be included in one of the stock indices, like the S&P 500, is it have to have a certain market cap, a certain number of positive quarters. And so if Q2 is a positive quarter for MicroStrategy, which it looks like it's going to be based on the way that June is closing out the month. And by the way, we're going to get into this because the way that June is closing out the month shows that there's a lot of pressure at this $110,000 level. And it doesn't seem like it's a very strong level. We're going to be getting into that in just a few minutes. And I'm going to show you actually the selling flows and the fact that although people are saying, well, we have all this buying, institutions have joined the party, there's people on the other end of that who are selling their coins. And so effectively, that was in response to this other tweet that says that there's about a 95% chance of MicroStrategy qualifying for the S&P 500 in July. This doesn't guarantee inclusion, rather it qualifies them for consideration for inclusion. So this is an announcement of a potential announcement of a potential announcement of a potential integration. And the market thinks that this is not already priced in, but it is priced in. And even James Chanos, who's currently long Bitcoin, short MicroStrategy, said, yeah, no one will know about this except the hundreds of Bitcoin treasury bros posting about it daily. They're the only ones that will see it coming, MicroStrategy. And that's really literally where we're at in the cycle. Like, everybody thinks they're a genius. Everybody thinks their play is a genius play, even though fundamentally, looking at the data, what I do on this channel is analyze the market, right? You may not agree with my analysis, but I'm giving you my analysis, right? And so the data is showing that MicroStrategy is overvalued based on the underlying Bitcoin. And all these MicroStrategy bros are not realizing that literally Michael Saylor's telling you, don't buy MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is the vehicle that's going to help push Bitcoin higher. Buy the Bitcoin, because that's the underlying fundamental asset. And so once people start getting into these like plays on plays on plays and trying, the derivative market, it's like all these, people who say that they're making, millions of dollars in options, and then you ask them how many losses they have. They're like, oh, I never lose in options. And it's like, that's literally impossible. But anyway, moving right along, Jim Chanos also said a very simple argument is that he's on the same side of the trade and argument as Michael Saylor is, right? Short the stock, buy Bitcoin with it. Selling Bitcoin treasury company securities to buy Bitcoin. You are the counterparty. Just like I was saying in the beginning of this video, you are missing the signals. Not necessarily you specifically, but generally speaking, the market, the retail, right? Because they're buying MicroStrategy saying, oh, well, it's going to get included in the S&P 500. And Jim Chanos is like, yeah, but you're the counterparty to that trade. Because first of all, as I've explained, if MicroStrategy is included, that means Wall Street's going to be basically coming in. They are going to crush the MNAV premium that is currently about 1.8x. So if the MicroStrategy share is about $400, you're basically getting about $220 in underlying Bitcoin, according to the MNAV calculations. And so the price of the stock, MSTR, should be around $220, maybe a little bit more because they do have an underlying business as well, but around $220. It's at $400 when I'm recording this video. And so if you're buying, you're the counterparty to not only Jim Chanos shorting it and selling, but also MicroStrategy. And people are going to say, but Cryptoviser, MicroStrategy hasn't sold ATM recently. Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're not going to continue to do it at some point, especially if Wall Street starts buying some of these and it is included. I don't know when that news will or is going to come out. But again, these are signals in the market. And by the way, before we get to this tweet, there's a lot we're going to be discussing in today's video, by the way. We still have a conversation with Raoul Pal. We're going to be talking a little bit about Ethereum. We're going to be talking about the Coinbase trade. Like, there's a lot going on in the markets here. And I am not saying that everything I'm saying is accurate or going to come true. We don't know where the future of the market is. I'm just telling you guys what I see in the market in front of us, not the market I want. The MicroStrategy bros, the Bitcoin bros, Bitcoin's going to go to the top. Like, guys, I just told you just the other day that Anthony Pompliano's company just raised, I think, $500,000. They bought, I think, about $500,000 Bitcoin, $500,000 in Bitcoin. And, sorry, $500 million, not million, $500 million in Bitcoin. And I'm saying, like, this is at the top of the market. Anthony Pompliano knows, like, he's a very smart individual, right? But he's buying at the top of the market. Like, what is that going to do for this merged SPAC company and the valuation of the company in a bear market, or if the market rotates? And so everybody thinks like this is the start of the bull run, but this is the start of the end of the bull run, because all of this euphoria in the market, people are losing. And we've been talking about this for years. I've told my viewers, go look at my videos from last year, the year before, the bear market. I told my viewers, guys, you have to prepare for the bull market, because in the bull market, if you're not prepared, you're just going to keep moving the goalpost. Oh, 110,000, up 150,000, up 200,000. And then before you know it, we're back at 100,000, then back at 50,000. And you're like, oh, I completely missed the bull run. This is literally what people are saying about the altcoin season. I've had people on the channel and even off the channel ask, well, what about altcoin season? We haven't had alt season. And I'm like, we have. But it just may not have happened when you expected it. And that the market is never going to do things when you expect it. I mean, look at Internet Computer. We've been talking about Internet Computer on this channel for quite a while, and everybody seems to be bullish on it, but they're saying, but Cryptoviser, we haven't had a bull market. It's doing terribly. I mean, currently it is. But if you look back when we started really picking up coverage of Internet Computer, that was in September of 2023, was at a $2.90 low. And it went from $2.90 to $21, almost a 10x in just a few short months. And people say, but Cryptoviser, that wasn't the alt season. It's like, why? Because it didn't happen when you wanted it to happen? That's not how the markets work. You have to trade the market in front of you, not the market that you want. And everything that we're seeing, all these signals are telling us we're at the top of the market. Now that brings us to this Whale Panda tweet. Whale Panda says NASDAQ is at the all-time high. The S&P 500 is almost at all-time high. Bitcoin, not even close. And that, despite all the treasury companies and ETFs buying $1.5 billion in the first 3 days of the week, not suspicious at all. First of all, Bitcoin is at all-time record highs. People are like, but Cryptoviser, all-time record high is 112,000. There is literally no difference between $112,000 and $107,000. There's like no difference. It's basically the same thing. We're talking about having $10 and having $12 in your pocket versus having $10.70 in your pocket. It's not really going to make a material impact on these things, right? So Bitcoin is at all-time record highs, and people are like, well, why isn't Bitcoin at all-time record highs? It's like somebody's buying, but somebody's also selling the Bitcoin. And this is where people are losing, I don't know, they're losing complete investment analysis capabilities. Because here's the deal. The idea behind MicroStrategy and all these Bitcoin treasury companies is they're going to buy all the newly minted Bitcoin, right? All the mined Bitcoin, which apparently they are doing. But this is only thousands of Bitcoin a week. There are literally over almost 20 million Bitcoin in circulation right now, right? 19.8 million Bitcoin in circulation. People are going to say, okay, but Cryptoviser, 4 million are gone forever. Whatever. So we have 15 million Bitcoin in circulation. Clearly, people are holding the other 15 million and they are selling, right? Because smart money sells at the top of the market, regardless if you think that they're doing it or not, or they are doing it clearly, because with all the buying that's going on, clearly they're selling. And by the way, we know where the selling's coming from, and I'm going to show you the charts to this in just a minute. But before we go there, so Whale Panda says this, and Josh Mandel, who you guys know, big MicroStrategy trade in a positive. He made like $20 million on a MicroStrategy trade, and then got a lot of hate for selling to make $20 million in profit. It's ridiculous that people were even criticizing it. But anyway, he says prominent Bitcoin influencers keep calling for Powell's head, right, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, arguing he needs to cut rates. But the president, who now has a huge percentage of his family net worth in crypto, demands the Fed should lower rates. What is the rush, he says, perhaps now that we are all along the market, we're all in the market, and a lot of people are in the market at the top of the market, by the way. We actually love debasement and refuse to admit it. I say, quit trying to force it. Bitcoin will Bitcoin. And I would agree. Here's the deal. Everybody is anticipating all of these things, but these are not baked in. Or is the Federal Reserve going to cut rates? Maybe, maybe not. Are they going to do it in 2025? Maybe, maybe not. Are they going to make any real material impact to the market? Probably not. This is all setting up for the new Federal Reserve chairman, which is going to be around May of 2026. And I believe that is going to be an indicator of the bottom of the market. Because if they start cutting rates at that point, that will be the reversal. But we're almost a year from there. And people are saying, but we're not even at all-time record highs in Bitcoin. How is that possible? We are. And when we have this sentiment, all these signals of people buying the top of the market, the most bullish they've ever been at the top of the market, inability to see that we're literally at the top of the market, these are signals that the market is going to make them feel the wrath of the market, right? Like this is how the market operates. Just last week or the 2 weeks before, we had a little bit of a dip in the market, right? From $103,000 to about $98,000. That's a $5,000. That's a 4% move to the downside. And people were like, oh, the dip is over. I hope you bought the dip. And I'm like, bought the dip? That was not a dip. It was literally not a dip at all. At all. A $5,000 price move is not a dip. Even in the bear market, it wouldn't be considered a dip. Even not at these levels, $5,000 move wouldn't even be considered a dip. But now it's being considered up. That's the last dip that we're going to have in the market. It's like no, guys, no. The data is not showing us that. And by the way, the market prices all these things in. So the market has been pricing in that the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates because that's pretty much the market sentiment. But now we're finding out the Federal Reserve is not cutting rates, and there's no indication they're going to cut rates. And personally, I think that it's going to be held off as long as possible until the end of the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell's tenure, if not the new Federal Reserve Chairman after him. And so if the market realizes that, which the market has not realized that just yet, but when the market does realize that, oh boy. I mean, we're talking about 50% drop within a few days. And that is going to create extreme fear in the market. That is going to create a capitulation event, right? You will know when the capitulation event occurs. Like if you have to ask if it's capitulation, it's not capitulation. Like going from 103,000 down to 98,000 was not capitulation, but people thought it was. Well, they're missing the signals, as the title of this video says. They are missing the signals. We also heard from another prominent Bitcoin influencer, Fred, who said a question he gets is, Fred, the only reason you say Powell should resign is to pump Bitcoin. He says, no, the reason these high rates are hurting the average American, our houses are completely affordable. We're spending an extra $400 billion on interest that we can avoid. Unemployment is low, but the jobs are terrible. We need to get the economy back on track. He says, on top of this, there's a massive opportunity with AI that we need to seize, and this requires new investments. And I agree with all of these things that Fred is saying. But that doesn't mean the Federal Reserve is going to cut, right? We've heard this from the Fed. They're not going to cut. And now that we have this battle and this setup for the new Federal Reserve chairman, for a chairman to be just put in without any questions, like think about it. If the economy is good and the markets are moving higher and the Federal Reserve has already cut rates significantly, why would Congress confirm another Federal Reserve chairman who says they're going to cut even further? They're going to say, well, we don't need that right now. We can slow it down. But if the economy is bad and the people's 401ks are down and we need massive spending and they push this off until the new Federal Reserve chairman, people are going to be begging for it. Like, approve this Federal Reserve chairman so we can cut the rates and everybody will be on the same page. But the market isn't pricing that in yet. But that is what's going to happen. It's setting up. We see the Trump team and Federal Reserve chairman team back and forth right now about, I'm going to fire you. You better lower rates. You don't know what you're talking about. You're too late, Powell. All of this stuff. It's setting up for this. So even if the Federal Reserve cuts rates this year by 0.25%, guys, that's been priced in for a year. So it's not going to really have any material impact on the market. In fact, when the Federal Reserve does cut rates, I think that could potentially be another pump in the market to exit in, right? Because that's not the pump, that's not the cut we're looking for. We're looking for massive cuts. And so if the Federal Reserve does nothing until the new chairman gets in and the new chairman comes in and he's like, we're going to cut rates by 1%. Oh boy, you want to definitely have cash ready to deploy at that moment. And there's going to be a lot of people that don't have any because they don't think that we're at the top of the market, even though we clearly are at the top of the market. Anyway, we're also seeing things like this. This is another signal. This user posted a screenshot and says, this guy took out a Bitcoin loan of $1 million. He has 166,000 shares of MSTY. This is Yield Max. We've talked about Yield Max before. It's basically they sell covered call options on the market, and then they have monthly dividends. And the dividends are they're pretty good in terms of like you're getting like somewhere between 5 and 7% per month based on the performance more recently. But the issue here is the NAV erosion, and we'll get to that in a second. So he has 166,000 shares of MSTY and just got paid $227,000 in dividends. Earning over $200,000 per month in dividends is an unattainable dream salary. And that is true. I mean, this is good numbers, and I believe that this is a real screenshot because we've covered MSTY fairly extensively on this channel in the past, and pretty much all Yield Max products. But here's the deal: we covered this before people started, taken out $1 million Bitcoin loans. Now that people are doing this, I mean, to me, that's a top signal because they're seeing $228,000 in dividends. And this is a lot, right? It is good. But what do you think they're doing with this money? Do you think they're paying back their loan or they're doubling down on their investment? Most people are doubling down on their investment. And if they're not doubling down on their investment, well, then you are the exit liquidity if you are, because they're not. They're selling. They're putting money and taking it out and paying back their loan. But I would imagine a lot of people, they see this and they're like, oh, this is the money glitch. This can never stop. I figured out the money glitch. I can do this forever. And this is a very risky attitude to have because this is what people do in the stock market also. They're like, wow, MicroStrategy is the best trade in the world. Wow, Bitcoin's the best trade in the world. Like Anthony Pompliano, like I think he really does believe Bitcoin is the best asset in the world. And maybe it is. But he's buying for a company that's going to be a treasury company at the top of the market. This doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, MSTY is $21 right now. So he has 166,000 shares. Let's see, let's multiply that by $21. So he has $3.5 million in MSTY, right? And he's making $227,000 this month. And so, yes, you can double your investment in 1 year. But remember, you're paying capital gain. No, this is, I think, taxed as ordinary income because it's a dividend. So that's about, depending on where you live, 20 to 40%. And you have NAV erosion on the actual security itself. I mean, if you look at the 1 year chart on MSTY, I mean, we've gone down from $44 to we have about a 50% reduction. And a lot of this is because of the NAV erosion. And so, again, more top signals, but people aren't paying attention. And again, we go back to, well, if they're buying and the price isn't moving, that means that there must be a lot of selling, and there is. And by the way, if you're up to this point in the video, don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Welcome to our new channel members. If you want to become a channel member, click the join button down below to learn more about how you can help support the channel for as little as $1.99 a month. I think $2 a month is not that much for all of the info that we give absolutely for free on this channel. But if you can't afford it or just don't want to pay, at least give the video a free thumbs up. So Bitcoin Monger posted this, said once again, CZ is doing his best from keeping Bitcoin from launching. Honey Badger don't care though. When it finally breaks through, it will go vertical. And he posted this. Now, I don't know the validity of this screenshot, but I'm going to take it for what it is. I do think that this is how the books, the order books look on all the exchanges. Because as I've explained, if you actually go into the order books, you can see on many of the major exchanges, Bitcoin, Coinbase, Kraken, etc., they're very thinly traded Bitcoin books. And so with all of the Bitcoin treasury companies like MicroStrategy buying all of this Bitcoin for years now, but really watching the last year and seeing how much they're buying and then going and looking at the order books and you see they're very thinly traded. It's like, okay, where are they buying the Bitcoin from? And we don't see their proof of reserves. Michael Saylor refuses to publish their wallet addresses, which also adds more questions. But I do think that they have the Bitcoin. I just don't think that they want people to know where they're getting the Bitcoin from, which is interesting. I do think that they're buying directly from Bitcoin mining companies. That would make sense. And it would make sense for the Bitcoin mining companies as well to do that. And these are all off-chain transactions. But if you look, Binance has much heavier books. And some of these are perpetuals. So this is like derivative trading, but this is actual spot Bitcoin. And you can see that Coinbase has like, under 20 for each level. And Binance has 400, 500 Bitcoin at these different levels. And so this begs a question like, who's cashing out? Guys, there's always a counterparty. As I told you earlier in this video, what Jim Chano said, you're the counterparty in the MicroStrategy trade. If you're buying, they're selling. They're literally selling you shares they don't even own so they can buy at a lower price while you're buying with money that you can't afford to lose. That's the play. That's literally the play. And so when we look at this, you have to understand Binance has been in the game for a long time. CZ has been in the game for a long time. They probably have a lot more Bitcoin than you can even, conceptualize, right? I think at one point we heard that Binance alone had like 80,000 Bitcoin, right? We know Tether has like 100,000 Bitcoin, plus a lot of other assets as well. And so for us to think, right, understand that CZ went through the whole Department of Justice case about, getting not being licensed in the US and all that. Now it's all clear. He's cashing out 100%. That doesn't mean he's not bullish on crypto. He's just he's taking it and probably going to put it into other stuff, right? But you can clearly see that here, and it's probably not just him. It's probably Binance as well, right? Binance has been probably hoarding a lot of Bitcoin for years, and so yeah, there's always a counterparty, guys. And for us to think that, oh well, MicroStrategy is going to buy up all the Bitcoin. Yeah, they might buy up all the mined Bitcoin, but there's still millions and millions of Bitcoin left. And the whole idea of supply demand metrics is the higher the price goes, it incentivizes more buying. If you're a CZ or Binance and you can literally sell with no issues from a regulatory perspective anymore in the US or a legal perspective anymore in the US, even though they're not US citizens or US based, right? There was still always that concern. They're gonna take some profits, for sure. So that's very interesting to see how the order books are so heavy outside of Coinbase. And Coinbase is really what all of the ETFs and exchanges and all of that are pretty much using. So that's an indicator, guys. We also are now hearing Coinbase CEO is confirming relentless buying spree as the S&P 500 stock hits a new all-time record high. And so now Coinbase stock is basically above their IPO price, which took 3-4 years to get back to. But yeah, it doesn't make sense that he's buying now at the top of the market, right? So David Bailey wrote, kudos to Brian Armstrong, who's a total G and rightfully earned the all-time high. Now he just needs to build a proper Bitcoin treasury. And Brian Armstrong said, we're buying more Bitcoin every week, long Bitcoin. And so if we look at Bitcoin's holdings for the previous 4 or 5 years, we know that they've held crypto, but they haven't been buying it at really any notable rate that I've seen in their SEC filings. And so if they're starting to buy now, that means they're buying the top of the market also. How does nobody see this? I don't get it, right? I don't get it. I'm not saying Bitcoin's not going higher. Of course it can go much higher. But I think that the market is already toppish, right? It's already euphoric. It's already in the mode, like what we said, the screenshot rule, when you're excited and you're posting all your gains, saying that you're making $228,000 in dividends. Wow, I unlocked the infinite money glitch. Well, first of all, you put $3.5 million into it, and you're going to have the NAV erosion there, and you're probably reinvesting this $228,000 into other investments or the same type of investment to get more. But this goes on in a bull market until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, everybody runs for the door at the same time. And this is where we will get a 50% reduction in the price. This is going to be a very bullish move. It's bearish because people are going to be fearful, but it's bullish because that could indicate a local bottom in the market that you can buy. And that if we re-reach the all-time record high, that's a 50% drop back to all-time highs would be a 100% gain. I'd rather have a 100% gain than a 50% loss, personally. So yeah, this doesn't really make sense that Brian Armstrong and Coinbase are doing this. But here are the other signals that were towards the top of the market. And by the way, this is based on historical data. And I don't see anybody who has been able to counter this argument just yet. So Brian Armstrong also posted this and said, you asked for it, we built it. Perpetual style crypto futures coming to the US on July 21. Starting with Bitcoin and Ethereum, there will be no quarterly expiration date, available 24/7 with spot price tracking, and it's fully CFTC compliant. Now, generally speaking, this is good for the markets. Not from a price perspective, though, because basically perpetual futures mean, like normal futures, they're like options. They have an expiration date. So if you go on the current Coinbase exchange, you have futures and then you have perpetuals. The futures, they have an expiration date. So it doesn't incentivize putting all your money in shorting Bitcoin. But perpetual futures, there's no disincentive to doing it because there's no expiration date. So if you short Bitcoin here at $107,000, yeah, if Bitcoin goes to $200,000, you can get, you need the margin for that, and you need the cash to back that up. But all you needed to do is drop below this, and you're in the green. You're not worrying about the expiration date, which a lot of options traders and futures traders do have to worry about. So what happens in perpetual futures trading is, because it's perpetual, no expiration date, people will just hold that position. And they're because perpetuals are a derivative, they're supposed to derive their value from the underlying asset. So perpetuals are supposed to get their value from the crypto. But what happens is the derivative markets create fear sometimes and manipulate the actual underlying asset. We saw this happen with Alameda and FTX when they were manipulating values of cryptos that they didn't list. We've talked about this extensively. Internet Computer, Cardano, and Litecoin were not listed on the FTX exchange, but FTX had perpetual futures listed for those cryptos. And what did we see happen during the 2021 cycle with those three cryptos? Internet Computer, Cardano, and Litecoin. Litecoin didn't hit its all-time record high. Cardano didn't reach its maximum potential, right? It went to $3.10, but I do think that it should have gone a little bit higher personally. And no, I didn't sell at $3.10, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. But well, maybe I would have sold at $3.10. But anyway, you guys kind of get the point. And with Internet Computer, I mean, just go look at the chart. It went from $800 down to $2. And so this was perpetual future trading. They were manipulating the price of the underlying asset through these perpetual futures, just shorting the F out of them and cratering them and not allowing them to reach true price discovery. And so when I saw that, and then we also know in 2017, the SEC approved Bitcoin futures. They launched the day that the market topped. Then in 2021, the SEC again approved Bitcoin futures. And within a few weeks of those Bitcoin futures launching publicly, that was the top of the market. So generally speaking, these perpetual futures launches are not good for the price of the crypto, because people do go in and start shorting because they don't have, especially because we're towards the end of the bull market, regardless if you think that we've hit the top or not. We're 12 to 18 months after the Bitcoin halving, and this historically is when the top is hit for the cycle. And so if we are towards the end of the cycle and now they're launching these perpetual style futures, there's no expiration date. So there's no necessarily fear of that decay of your investment. What do you think is going to happen? Duh, people are going to short the market. And this, along with all the ETFs, Invesco Galaxy files for a Solana ETF, and 9 issuers are now in the race. And by the way, that's just for the Solana ETF. We also have a ton of other ETFs for PP Dogecoin, Solana, SWI, Polygon, all these other cryptos. And I think it's going to be the same type of situation. When these launch, maybe there'll be an initial push and pump, but that will be it, right? Because they're not going to keep buying. And here's the deal, like Wall Street in some essence doesn't care if they're buying the top of the market, but they're also like, these ETFs is not Wall Street. These ETFs are individual investors that buy into the ETF, and then the ETF buys the crypto. And so who's going to be doing this at the end of the cycle? It's going to be just like you, the counterparty, right? I don't think there's going to be as much excitement. Maybe I'm going to be wrong on this, but I'm definitely looking at all of these signals together and saying, yeah, we may not be at the tippy top, but we're definitely towards the top. But that doesn't mean we're at the top. And again, we're starting to see the narrative shift away from Bitcoin and into Ethereum. And as this is going on, by the way, first of all, just based on price activity, this should be expected. Like, we're going to see a rotation into Ethereum at some point, right? We have the president of the United States and his family heavily invested in DeFi protocols, not just from a financial standpoint, but from we want to implement this into the financial system. We see the banks getting involved and all of this happening all at once, right? And so the idea that Ethereum is not going to have the rotation is ridiculous. And so what's going to happen, and we're already starting to see it, as the rotation begins, right? We're starting to see a lot of sell pressure in Bitcoin. And people are like, wait, why are we not going higher? Why are we not going higher? It's like, we just basically laid that out for you. But Ethereum, people have been bitching and crying about for a while. Oh, Ethereum is totally underperforming all of this. But meanwhile, it's still the number one DeFi protocol, still the number one used blockchain, the most interoperated, the most integrated, the most high level usage cases, like use cases, the best layer two. I can keep going on and on. You guys get it. And now we have Wall Street entering the game for Ethereum. And so there's going to be focus, right? People made a lot of money in the Bitcoin and the MicroStrategy, all these Bitcoin treasury companies. For you to think that they're not going to rotate that money into something else would be foolish. It would be foolish. And so let's listen to what Joe Lubin says, because he says Ethereum represents the re-decentralization of the World Wide Web, and it's now scalable, legal, and ready for real-world apps. Let's listen to what he said. We're going to put this on 125 speed, so a little bit faster. And don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up. I really hope you guys are enjoying these kind of conversations. And I'm not telling you what to do with your portfolio. I'm just kind of laying out the way that I view the market. I know there's a lot of people who don't agree with the way that I view the market, but we've been very accurate on this channel historically. Not with every trade, not with every stock, not with every crypto, not every time, but we've been very accurate with the timing of the market. And this is really important to understand. Like, we're no longer talking about what I'm doing in my portfolio, because there's clearly counter trading going on there, and it shouldn't matter what I'm doing in my portfolio. Like, I'm giving you my general thesis of where we are. And so if you want to do something in your portfolio to reflect what your research in the market is, do it. But if you think that we're not at the top of the market, then keep holding or keep buying, But we're not talking about my portfolio anymore, because I don't think it really matters. I think that the general thesis of what I'm talking about is really what matters. And this is the same thing for what Ethereum is doing, right? The valuation may not be there, but the value is still there. And at some point, it will correct to those levels. Let's listen to what Joe Lubin says.
Has had first mover advantage, and it's really got a simple value proposition. It's a store of value. It's digital gold, decentralized digital gold. Ethereum represents the next generation of the internet, evolution of the internet and web protocols. Ethereum is Web 3, the re-decentralization of the World Wide Web. Ethereum's been building layers of enabling infrastructure for nearly a decade, trying to get scalable enough so that we can move applications onto decentralized rails. Builders are coming into the ecosystem now. Enterprises, financial institutions are now comfortable because it's now legal to do blockchain things in the U.S. With the new regime in the SEC and in the U.S. government. Ethereum is now scalable enough, it's affordable enough, and it's usable enough so that the best and brightest entrepreneurs are going to be able to build applications of by and for the community rather than, as in the traditional economy or in Web 2, in an adversarial nature with their users. So it's going to be a game changer for how the world re-architects its systems.
Now, definitely, for Lubin to become a Michael Saylor, first of all, Michael Saylor was very similar to this kind of presentation when he first started, and he had to kind of refine that. And I think that Lubin is going to have to do that as well to really get people on board with what he's saying. But again, the narrative is shifting. Bitcoin miner Bit Digital raises $150 million and is pivoting to Ethereum staking. And the shares have fallen, right? And in the stock price, because this Bitcoin mining company is completely shifting to Ethereum. Because the Ethereum staking, first of all, I think that this is very smart. As I've said many times on this channel, a lot of Bitcoin mining companies went bankrupt in this previous bear market, 2021 to 2023, because they didn't prepare properly. They were buying Bitcoin mining machines at the top of the market, pre-ordering and prepaying for them to be delivered in 2022. And then when they got delivered, the Bitcoin price was down by over 50%. The cost of energy was up significantly. And the machines, nobody really wanted them. So they lost about 50% of their valuation. And a lot of these companies went bankrupt because of this. what we're seeing is a lot of companies are just doubling down on Bitcoin. Some are doubling down and getting into AI. We've talked a lot about these. I actually did a recent analysis which shows that my analysis on the Bitcoin mining companies, specifically from an AI perspective, is very, very accurate. And people are missing that. The pivot to AI is going to benefit these companies because, number one, the AI realm is about to get a huge injection of money. Going back to the beginning of this video where we were talking about, the fact that AI does need a liquidity injection. I don't remember which post it was, but it's true. AI does need a liquidity injection to stay ahead, and it will get it. But when it gets it, these Bitcoin mining companies, they're going to be that did pivot some of their infrastructure to AI. They're going to do extremely, extremely well. And so the fact that we see Bit Digital transitioning to Ethereum as we're at all-time record highs, as euphoria in Bitcoin is at all-time record highs, this is smart in my view, because as money is draining from Bitcoin, it's going to move into the next best thing. And what is that? Ethereum. And if we're going to a bear market, they can still make money off Ethereum staking versus Bitcoin mining would become unprofitable. A lot of people are not paying attention to this. But I also am getting a lot of questions about M2 money supply, right? And the fact that, well, M2 money supply is going to pump the price of crypto. And we've been talking about Raoul Pal's extended cycle and banana zone for a while. I'm very skeptical of most things that he says at this point. But he said, I get a million when banana zone questions. In Real Vision Pro and GMI, we called for the start in September of 2024 as the banana zone. Bitcoin doubled since then, and quality alts 3x to 5x. He said that they explained the phase one correction in January to April and called the low in April as well. The M2 chart is at acceleration point. Rates are coming down. The dollar is weakening. All that is left for alt season is the ISM decisively moving above 50. If your token doesn't perform, you got the wrong allocation. That's the playbook. And so there's a lot of things in here that is just ridiculous, right? And again, a lot of this is in hindsight. I don't remember any time where they were saying that the start of the banana zone was in September of 2024. This was the macro bottom for a lot of these coins over the last year, but this was not the beginning of the banana zone. And a lot of the conversations after that were, when we get to the banana zone, right? And saying that they called the low in April, right? I mean, it is what it is. The M2 chart is accelerating. Rates are not coming down. They have not come down. And this is the whole conversation that we've been talking about. Everybody's anticipating rates coming down, but they're not. And this kind of goes into my thesis that the billionaires are selling you their coins. You're buying right now, they're selling you because they know this is the end of the cycle, whether we like it or not. Rates are not coming down until the Federal Reserve chairman gets switched out, which I don't think is happening for quite a while. I could be wrong on this. Maybe they'll lower 0.25%. It's not going to do for the market. We're not going into parabolic zone. And by the way, he keeps saying he is correct in if your token doesn't perform, you got the wrong allocation. The other thing is you have to take profits. Otherwise, you're not locking in these gains, right? Like I showed you at the beginning of the video. People say internet computer didn't perform, but it did. Whether you were in at that point or not, that's a whole different story. Maybe we're in a bear market right now and you're going to have to wait for that performance to happen again, but it already did happen. We trade the market in front of us, not the market we want. And while, yes, M2 money supply is increasing, it's not increasing that much. And it's been increasing since April of 2023. And what has happened in the market? The market has also increased since 2023. Does this mean that we're going much, much higher? Maybe, maybe not. I don't work on what ifs anymore in the market. I'm trading the market in front of me, not the market that I want to be in front of me. And so saying the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates, that's the market I want, not the market that is, because the Federal Reserve is not cutting rates. And if they do cut rates, it's going to be a very, very small percentage. And then they're going to pause and wait. So I don't think that this is going to have any material impact on the fact that we are in a macro top of the market. And I think that a lot of you are missing those signals. And, at the end of the day, if you're buying at this point, you are the exit liquidity. You are, as Jim Chanos says, the counterparty. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think about this whole thesis about we are at the top. People are missing the signals. Is this by design? Let me know down below in the comments of the video. Check out my other videos on the channel, and I'll see you when I see you. Invest responsibly and crypto on.